Learning art, just like learning anything, is not easy. You can go about it the wrong way and make no progress, or you can make mad progress quickly when you do it right. In this week's YouTube Art School episode, I'll show you the absolute best way to practice art based on my decade of experience teaching it. You're gonna get much better, faster, quickly. Class is starting. Alright, pay attention. Class is in session. Today, we're gonna learn how to study the right way to avoid wasting your time and make progress as quickly as possible. Epic. We'll tackle how to study art in 3 different levels, from beginner to intermediate to advanced, because as you get better, your approach has to constantly evolve for your skills to keep improving. Kinda like in a video game where as you level up, the monsters also get stronger to offer a greater challenge. So what's the best way to get that greater and greater challenge as you study art to make sure you level up faster than others? Learn to observe. When you start as an artist, it's a whole new world out there. Where do you begin? What do you focus on? If you've only just recently started, your biggest hurdle will be to observe properly. Observation is everything to an artist. It's the most important skill you can develop. It's the ability to see something, but beyond just seeing, to also understand and memorize it with good accuracy, so that you can hopefully draw it from imagination later. The problem is that we're all initially pretty bad at doing that. Observation is a skill like any other, and all skills start at 0. We've all been there. It's normal. As you get better, not only can you soak up increasingly more information, but you also get better at remembering it too. So to improve it, what do? Well, the concrete steps would be to start off by looking at simple objects and trying to draw them, either from real life, things around you, or from photo references. The key here is that you'll want to spend about half the time just observing your subject. Don't start drawing right away. Spend a good amount of time staring at your subject, trying to notice different things about it that you might have never paid attention to before. Looking at its silhouette, how big it is relative to nearby objects, what color it is, how that color changes when it goes from a highlight into shadow, how shiny it is, how it fits in its environment, what is it made out of, what simple geometric shape does it remind you of. Take a good moment to get familiar with it. That step is super important. You'll be doing that a whole lot moving forward. Remember, it's the most important skill. So after observing for a little while, after you've gotten more familiar with the subject, try drawing it with a pencil, glancing back at it every time you hesitate to put a stroke down. Focus on line art first, since that's the most important. You can always try coloring and shading later once the line art part gets easy or easier, but that's not nearly as important initially. Traditional or digital makes no real difference. I think it's just maybe a little easier with a real pencil at first. There's just fewer technical hurdles. So at first, keep it simple. Draw simple objects. Remember, initially you're not really practicing drawing. You're mostly practicing to observe better. The drawing part will just help highlight what you should focus your observation on. Whatever you're struggling with the most, spend some extra time observing that some more. And don't worry about the time that it takes you. Your speed is just a reflection of your experience, so you should be pretty slow at first. And that's level 1. Just seeing is for non-artists. We artists observe. Start observing. Focus on the fundamentals. Now at level 2, when you're able to draw simple objects, maybe some more complicated subjects like people using references, you'll want to introduce some art theory to the mix. The art fundamentals. And this is what this level 2, will focus on. And if you don't know what they are, I have a video on the subject right here in the top right corner of the screen or down in the description below. Check it. So I recommend you learn a bit on all the various fundamentals. This is a big focus of my art program, for example, for which, by the way, you'll be able to get the biggest discount of the year right now when you use the coupon in the video description. It's valid until the end of the month only. Check the link in the description. There's a trailer and a ton more of info there. We've just reached 13,000 students enrolled to date, which is just insane. If you're already a student, I love it. All right, back to what I was saying about level 2. All the fundamentals are worth looking into at this point, but more specifically, the fundamental of construction. And I'll get back to that in a second. Now, the main thing that will limit your observation skill is your knowledge of the subject. As an example, if you've never played a game of like League of Legends and you decide to watch a game on Twitch, you'll probably be back to browsing YouTube real quick because you won't understand anything that's happening. Your knowledge of the game will be limiting how much you can understand. Learn the rules though, and it'll probably be a lot more interesting, and you'll be able to extract more information from what's happening. And at that point, you might actually have a good time watching a game. Do the same for your art. Learn the rules of the game, the art fundamentals. So at level 2, we'll be doing everything that we were doing at level 1, but introducing some art theory to help push our skills further. I was mentioning construction just a second ago because that fundamental is all about deconstructing what you see, simplifying, abstracting the complex shapes of a subject into simple volumes that are easy to draw, like boxes, cylinders, and spheres. Those are arguably a lot easier to draw than almost anything else, and that's what you should always start your drawings with, instead of going right into the details. Practicing construction is super important since it acts almost as a filter for your observation skill. You can't observe everything, there's just too much. So what do you focus on? And what do you ignore when you look at references? Being good at construction means that you can look at something complex like a human body and see only the simple volumes that it's made out of. Being able to see those volumes as you start drawing and then slapping on the details afterwards is the way to go at level 2. And I have another video specifically on construction, so I'd definitely recommend that you check that out too if you're still not sure what construction is all about. Once again, link in the top right corner of the screen and down below. So level 1 was just about observing your reference and then drawing what you see. At level 2, observe the reference, draw a simple construction for it, move on to details, and everything else you're able to observe. And by the way, at level 2, the references can also be other artists that you know are technically good, aka professionals. See how they construct their drawings, you might pick up a bunch of tricks. I wouldn't do that at level 1 though, not yet. Anyways, as you practice studying art at level 2, start with the line art first, then feel free to explore adding shading, color, etc. But always put more emphasis on the line art if you want to level up faster. Trust me on that one, focus on line art. Become a specialist. Finally, level 3 is where most advanced artists will find themselves. Maybe that's you. You have a solid grasp on all fundamentals, and the main focus at this level will be to educate yourself, to become a specialist on whatever you prefer to draw. If it's characters, for example, well, study anatomy like a physical therapist might, looking at all the muscles, the bones, the proportions, differences between males and females, how things work in motion when muscles are flexed or relaxed, etc. The more you know on the subject you're trying to draw, the more you can observe and the better you'll get at drawing it. At level 2, we would look for a reference, then draw a blockout or a construction for that subject, and then further add detail. But instead at level 3, we'll start with the construction from imagination. We're flying on our own now. We'll still use references throughout the process though, but it shouldn't be needed for the construction at this point. If you ever have any hesitation, bring the references back, get the information that you're missing, and then keep going without until you need it again. The reference at level 3 is now more of a crutch rather than the main source of information like it used to be at level 2. Once your construction is solid, move on to the details just like at level 2, but challenge yourself by relying less and less on the references. Don't wing anything, but before you draw anything, try to do it from memory first, or from what you know might make sense. When you try not relying 100% on a reference and instead just trust your memory, your visual library, trusting what you've learned so far, it helps make you even more receptive to relevant information. It basically makes you into a better information sponge, an art sponge. With each of the 3 levels that we've seen today, the learning pace should increase if you do it well, if you adjust how you approach studying as you get better and better. I happen to be in a fortunate position where I get to interact with more artists than most, seeing how they develop and what works in their education versus what doesn't work. What we saw today is the result of all those years of research and trial and error. That's how I teach, and it works awesome for the vast majority of students. Maybe that's what you were missing too. Level 3 is how I study art nowadays, and I've never improved as fast as I do now, so I highly recommend you give this a shot if your progress hasn't been what you hoped it would be. So there it is. I think this is super relevant for artists of all levels, and I hope it'll help if progress hasn't been up to the pace you expect from yourself, or if you're just starting and had no idea where to even begin. Hope it helps. Let me know if it does in the comments. As usual, I read them all. All right, I'll see you in next week's class. Don't be late.